Next up, for this year's State of Higher Education, we're bringing together top decision makers to examine the current landscape and the future of higher education in Texas, from topics such as access, affordability, workforce alignment, and innovation in education. Our panelists will take a comprehensive look at the challenges and the opportunities facing institutions as they meet and adapt to the evolving needs of students and the state's economy. Our moderator for this discussion is Interim Commissioner of Higher Education, Sarah Keaton. Please extend a warm welcome to our distinguished panelists.
Good morning and welcome to the State of Higher Education panel discussion. I am so thrilled and honored to have this distinguished panel of leaders with us today to tackle some of the most pressing issues and opportunities in Texas higher education. We have Jay Graham with us here today. Jay Graham is the chairman and CEO of Spur Energy Partners and a member of the Texas A&M University Board of Regents, appointed by Governor Greg Abbott in 2019. Regent Graham leverages his expertise in business and governance to advance educational opportunities and institutional excellence at one of Texas's premier university systems. We also have Dr. Brian McCall, who serves as the Chancellor of Texas State University System, the oldest university system in Texas. As a former member of the Texas House of Representatives, Dr. McCall brings a wealth of experience and innovation to guiding one of the largest and most diverse university systems in Texas, comprised of 7 institutions with more than 90,000 students and over 16,000 faculty and staff. We also have Dr. Jeremy McMillan, president at Grayson College. Dr. McMillan is a dedicated advocate for community colleges, fostering student success and workforce development in North Texas. Dr. McMillan believes in the transformative power of higher education, bringing his own experience as a first-generation college student or college graduate. In addition to his leadership on campus and within the community, Dr. McMillan serves on the Texas Association of Community Colleges Executive Committee. So honored to be with the 3 of them here today. So one reason that I'm really excited to have this be a panel discussion today is we are really at a pivotal point in higher education in Texas. So we're at a crossroads of rapid technology advancement, workforce evolution, and shifting student needs, a lot of which we've heard about over the last couple of days. So how we collectively respond to those challenges will shape not only our institutions in higher education, but also the future of our economy and communities here in Texas. So I kind of wanted to start with some questions around student success. That's sort of where we started our conference with yesterday morning. So Chancellor McCall, from your point of view, what strategic approaches have been most effective in fostering student success and degree completion across institutions within your Texas State University system?
Well, it happens in the classroom, but it's not limited to the classroom. And to piggyback on the last panel, internships, externships, involvement. We have at each of our campuses organization set up so that if a student misses a few classes, they get a call. Come in, let's talk. What's going on? Those sort of intrusive things are very important, particularly with first-generation college students, which makes up about 45% of our student body. But any sort of extracurricular involvement is very important. And partnering with businesses to make sure that we have a career track that is tied to the academic track.
Yeah, absolutely. Regent Graham, what strategic approaches have been effective in the Texas A&M University system? And I wanted to also ask kind of, how do you think about student success, particularly around affordability as a key component of student success that we've heard about?
Yeah, for me, I think affordability, it all boils down to that. So many of our students in the state, they can go to college, right? They're smart enough to come to college or whatever, but if they can't afford it, then they're not able to do it. And so we've done a good job, I think, in our system focusing on that. I was chair of the Committee of Academic and Student Affairs a couple of years ago, and some of the A&M people are out here and they saw me do it. I mean, that's all I focused on and all I wanted to talk about. 40% of our, student cost is room and board. And so what can we do as a system to assist with that? And, honorable room and board, right? Not everybody wants to live in a high tower with fancy swimming pools and stuff like that. So what kind of opportunities can we offer our system, or our students, that are honorable, though, and not just cheap stuff off into the corner of town? And same with, food. How can we offer them good choices there? Open educational resources. I don't think a student should have to pay for a book. There's no book, no resource that a student should have to pay for. And so, we're not there yet. I think, for our system, it's around $1,000 to $1,500 a student a semester. I think it is, maybe a year for books, and it should be zero. And lastly, mental health. At the end of the day, if life gets in the way, then they can't move. So, life could be their car breaks down, they have a flat, and if they can't afford to fix that flat, then it doesn't matter, what class, if they have a test that day or not, if they can't afford that. So what can we do as a system to keep life out of the way and really focus on mental health? And not so, we also focus on mental health programs, advising programs. We've got some apps now in our system that we provide our students. I think Dr. Hallmark told me 70 or 80% of the contact that our students have on these mental health apps are after hours. So, it doesn't matter if we have a counselor sitting in their office. If this student needs help at 2 a.m, they need it right then. And so really focused on that. And I think at the end of the day, if the systems and the universities can handle the life issues for our students, then they'll handle the academics and do it well.
Yeah, that reminds me a lot of what we heard about yesterday around making sure things are academically rigorous in the classroom, but that we're not making it rigorous from an administrative or outside the classroom
100%.
Perspective, that we're streamlining that.
100%.
So, President McMillan, last legislative session, the Texas legislature overhauled community college finance. How are colleges adapting to this transformative finance policy to drive student outcomes in particular, particularly those related to credentials of value to meet the goals of building a talent-strong Texas?
Well, thanks for that question. For 50 years, nearly 50 years, Texas community colleges were funded when students were enrolled in class on the 12th day of class, with some exception, some success point model for the last 13 years of that. But that was radically changed this last legislative session, where students, we receive funding when a student receives a credential of value. And that means credential of value to the student, which also powers the next generation workforce for the state of Texas. Last session, House Bill 8 was passed, and the coordinating board, thank you for all the work and all the teams getting that work going, immediately went to work. And our funding all of last year and funding this year has been based upon those outcomes. That's been a dramatic shift for our colleges, understanding how to navigate that and how to move that forward. In Texas, 700,000 students attend community colleges. 96% of all the technical, career and technical education training programs at the 2-year level are provided by Texas community colleges. This shift was a big bet on Texas and Texans and community colleges, and we appreciate that bet. At Grayson College, just one example of how we're taking that, and I've got many, but one example, our area is growing by some of the things on the prior panel with semiconductor industry is hitting in our area as well. Sherman, Texas is where TI is planning a new manufacturing plant. I'll talk about semiconductor later, but it's also driving growth of all of our other programs, one of those being health sciences. So we have a plan to double our our nursing training program over the next several years. We're going to add 5 other nursing training programs because our area is a regional hub for that. Those are high demand occupations. Those are credentials of value. I was appreciative of a presentation with Dr. Troutman a few weeks ago where he talked about return to value of what it costs to earn a degree. Nursing takes 1 year to have that return to value. And so we're accelerating things that we're doing in that space and making sure that we're able to meet the needs for a next generation workforce. I really want to say that we appreciate the commissioners. I know a few of you are here that helped us to begin the process of designing House Bill 8. The coordinating board and the collaboration, all the staff, the communications back and forth and the partnership we have to make sure that we get it right for our institutions and for our students and for our community for the future of Texas. I think we've got something really amazing happening in Texas. You heard in the prior panels that the nation will be watching us, and maybe you'll see that occur across the rest of some of our other states. And so I'm just glad to be at this point to be able to do the most important thing we can do is focus on students and their success.
And Regent Graham, it's interesting sort of hearing you talk about the kind of the mental health services app that A&M system has, and to recall sort of the automatic alerts, if you're not showing up, because I think higher education is often criticized for being slow to adapt or a slowly changing, industry. What are some examples, Regent Graham, of ways higher education has proven it can adapt quickly? And then what are some of the consequences of those changes that have happened?
So for me personally, I got on the Board of Regents in 2019. I think it's 2018, 2019. In my first year, second year, all of a sudden we had COVID, right? And so I can still remember we were sitting out at the Hildebrand Equine Center with all of our university presidents and staff. We were doing what we call a data palooza, just a down dump on all the info of our system, our students, and success. And we hear about COVID. It's about spring break time. Everybody goes home. And I know this, my son was a freshman at A&M at the time. And we were able to adapt in literally a week and turn education into an online system. I mean, so you can accuse us of being slow, but that was one where everybody stepped up and got it done. Now, what's the consequence of that? I'll tell you, as a business leader, I'm not looking for online educated students. My office in the oil and gas business, we can't be remote. Mm-hmm. We have to work in teams collaboratively in an office. And so, we can now use the online as a resource and as a supplement, but in my mind, it can't be the primary way to educate. And I still see it a little bit in our system. I now have another freshman at A&M. He has too many online classes, and it bothers me. He's a freshman in sports management, and I think 4 of his 6 classes are online right now, and that's not going to work. And so they don't know that, but they're going to hear about that. But then going forward, I think it comes down to leadership. If your system or your university, your provost, and downward are just happy to be there, then you're not going to have transformation. You're not going to lead. And so I think it comes down to leadership. You need transformational leaders who aren't afraid to make mistakes. Mm-hmm. And we as a system, we as a board can't hold people for wrong decisions. It's a risk reward. If you want to be out front, you're going to make some mistakes. And so just, put the right work into it and see it. But I think it comes down to who's leading that system or that university, and do they have the support to make those changes? Mm-hmm. And they have it at A&M.
Yeah, and to create some, take some risks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm a wildcatter, as the governor said, so I live on risk. I thrive on risk, so I'm not afraid of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Chancellor McCall, sometimes we hear a lot in higher education about sort of systemic barriers to rapid innovation, or that there's so much sort of big structure and long-standing kind of structure around higher education as an industry that can be a challenge or a barrier to systemic change. What strategies have been successful in your experience in overcoming some of those barriers to create a more agile and responsive institution?
Well, I do think, Sarah, that has been the case. I don't think it is the case. I think that has been traditionally the view of higher education. But by definition, you cannot train innovation. You cannot train innovators without innovating. We're doing it because that's the population that we're serving. We don't now have majors in accordion. We have majors in artificial intelligence and these things that are demanded by society. Society doesn't create them. They happen on campuses. These ideas come from campuses, and And campuses play a big role in it. So by design, we innovate. To build on what Jay said, every university in America did what had to be done. In a week's time, we converted 6,000 classes, 16,000 sections to an online version. Mental health is a big issue, to build on further what Jay was talking about. And so 100,000 students in our system have on their phone an app for 24-hour access to someone who can help them. And if they don't get the help they need, they have the ability to get to someone else who can help them. And if it's a mental health crisis or emergency, they get to the people on campus who can help them. And this is innovative, it's new. And what has happened is it's not just a one-off that the A&M and the Texas State system are doing it. Every significant university system in America does it. Did they do it a year ago? Some were starting. Did they do it 2 years ago? No. And so we listen, we react, we know what has to be done. But I do believe that you're correct that the perception is that we're staid in ivory tower, slow moving, reluctant to change. I haven't seen that.
Great.
Great to hear. One thing we heard from all of our students on the student panel yesterday was the importance of, getting a job after they graduated from higher education. They all connected their higher education experience to entering the workforce and getting a job after graduation. So I wanted to kind of chat with all of you, but I'll start with you, President McMillan. How is your institution or other institutions that you work with across the state ensuring that the graduates from your programs are equipped with not just the knowledge, but also the skills and the adaptability required to excel in today's global workforce?
It's no longer enough to receive a credential of value. It's really important to follow that student into the workforce, or in our case, follow them to the university and then follow them into the workforce. Make sure that they manage those transitions well. Our students, 82% of them are working in some form at community colleges, so they're already in the workforce. Maybe it's upskilling them and helping them to make those transitions. We stood up a career center at our college. We have a career coach that talks to the students before they start with us, and also we have them to help them enter the workforce. We have a goal at our college, our board target, of having students enroll in a first college or career-oriented class before their 15th hour of credit, so before they finish their first semester. What we're finding is when we have that occur, students connect to that major earlier, and that they have better opportunities to connect to workforce opportunities. When an employer calls me, and they do this all the time, I'm sure they do that with you as well, Chancellor. Hey, I need a student to help with fill in the blank. Who do we think about? We think about the faculty who know the students the most. We've added the layer of the career coach into that. But making sure that the student gets connected to that faculty member as early as possible is a big bet we're making at our college. And I think this last year, 72% of our students are taking a career-oriented class by the time they are in their 15th hour of credit. That's very powerful. Having the wraparound services to make sure students succeed while they're with us and then they succeed later is vitally important for us. Employer-driven curriculum development. Texas Instruments decided to come to the Sherman-Denison area a few years ago. And just for perspective, for the community that we live in, the taxable value of all property within the county, for our county, a decade ago was about $15 to $20 billion. Texas Instruments is investing $30 billion. Global Wafers, a silicon growth plant, is investing $5 billion. That's driving a lot of change for us. And they came to us and said that they needed technicians. They need 750 technicians. And there are 300 enrolled in all the programs, in specific programs or adjacent programs. If you draw a line from my college across to North Central Texas College, Tarrant College, Dallas College, and in that entire Metroplex area, 300 enrolled. And then they told us that was only for the first year. They need 1,000 the following year and the following year and the following year. So how do we develop curriculum in partnership with industry to make sure that they have what they need. That initial discussion was around an associate degree. We have to have an associate degree. So we designed an electrical engineering technology associate degree for those students, but we encourage them to stack those credentials. They earn an electronics certificate and an automation certificate. And we encourage them to make sure that we put those in chunks and make sure that they knew what knowledge and skills were available in each one of those. We did that because that made sense to us. They didn't understand that. Now they're hiring students with just one certificate. So short-term credentials are becoming more important, especially when labor challenges are there. And then also when the learning outcomes are there and those students are performing well in the workforce. And it's a partnership to make sure it's earn and learn. You don't just, or not, for us, you're not just a college student and then you become an employee, but how do you do that as you build across the system?
Yeah, no, that's great. Chancellor McCall, from your perspective as Chancellor, how is your system and institution sort of working on kind of all the workforce development issues and pieces of that you face?
Well, it's very important that we aggressively partner with businesses. Last year, U.S. businesses spent $100 billion on workforce training. That's just slightly below what universities spent across the nation combined on higher education. They're doing their part. We've got to do our part. And that is marrying the students with the workforce training that they need. We should be doing a good bit of that training. That 100 billion should be 90 billion in a couple years, then 80, or proportionally go down as ours goes up, to make sure that we're training for a need. Texas State University system educates about 10% of the university students in Texas. We have a great opportunity in Texas that other states don't have because there's a cliff coming in many states. 10% of the students in America are in Texas. We have a pipeline that other states don't have. Texas also has the ability to fund higher ed and the willingness to fund higher ed to a degree higher than most any other state, if not any other state in the union. These things come and go. These things change. But while things are hot in our economy now, for our businesses and for higher ed, the marriage should be sealed. We have to be together with business to make sure that we're training for the need.
Yeah, and Regent Graham, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, both as a regent and as an employer. I think it's a great perspective to bring to this.
Oh, I love this question and I'm passionate about it. I think every academic program should have an industry advisory board, all the way from your English department to your social justice or social work, whatever. You should have an industry advisory board because that's your pipeline for your internships, for your jobs, and to make sure you're educating them in what the world needs today. I mean, I remember I was a petroleum engineer 1988 to 93 at A&M, and then we were still doing problems on data that was 40 years old. We weren't doing work on problems that were current, and we've been able to get by that. I think professors of practice are extremely important. A&M has really adopted that well, especially in the engineering department, where just industry people come back. They don't have PhDs. They may not even have masters, and they come back and they're teaching full-on classes in the petroleum engineering department. And so our petroleum engineers are seeing someone has come from their office that day and they're teaching real-world problems. Certificate programs, I think, are extremely important. I was able, and it was hard, my business partner and I, about 10 years ago, were able to break in and build a certificate program between the petroleum engineering department and the finance department in the business school. It's called Petroleum Ventures. And it allows our petroleum engineers to have a few finance classes and some business classes, and the finance come over and take some engineering capstone classes with our engineering students. We have 100% placement in that program over a 10-year period for internships and full-time jobs. And our finance and petroleum engineering department aren't batting 1,000 on placement. but that program is. And so I think the more, to the Chancellor and President McMillan's comments, the more you can bring the industry in, it's only going to help those students. I didn't quite understand that internship stat this morning, that only 25%. I think it's higher here in Texas, honestly, because I know 100% of our engineers at A&M have to have an internship to graduate. That's 25,000 students of our 70,000. So, and our business students do also. So it's incumbent on our university system. To the Chancellor's point, the businesses want to be involved. And so, we have to, as an academic system, allow those businesses in and help us to plan these curriculums out the right way. So,
Yeah, no, that's great. Chancellor McCall, I'm going to start with you for this next one, but then ask everybody to weigh in on it. Where do you see the greatest opportunities for growth, collaboration, or transformation in Texas higher education?
Well, there are 5 million adults in Texas that have some college and no degree. That's about 30% of all adults over the age of 25. And we know what earning is with a degree versus what earning is without a degree. We know that we can specialize that training for something that is of interest to that adult. And we know that we can chart a career path for them that would be better than they could chart without having the credential or degree. And so if we have about 1 million students in universities at the moment, plus 700,000 in community colleges, that's a big population, but it's nowhere near as big as the 5 million adults who have some college but no degree. And so that would be a good place to start.
Mm-hmm. That's great. David Troutman in our office likes to talk about that as almost 5 million negative Yelp reviews that, we've got to overcome somehow, get them re-engaged. Regent Grimm, I'd love to also hear your thoughts about kind of what do you think are the greatest opportunities that we have right now?
I think, a great opportunity, and I think the Chancellor McCall mentioned it, is the flight is coming to Texas, right? The states are losing people and the opportunities coming to Texas. So the cliff that I've just recently heard about, that's in other places, right? I don't think it's in Texas. And so how do we set ourselves up to be successful there? I think we in the A&M system do a good job of it. Dr. Gibson's sitting out there, and she's, almost at every board meeting we hear about our We Teach Texas initiative in the A&M system. I think collaborating and getting all the way from pre-K to the day you graduate, the more coordinated we can be in that effort, the better off we will be. So as a higher education system, we shouldn't only be, and I know we're not, but we can't only focus on our system, our agencies, and our universities. We've got to take it all the way down to the pre-K level and, get them. And I think in the panel earlier, they talked about, it's hard. And even myself, when I was in high school, I went from wanting to be a baseball coach to a doctor to a businessman. I never wanted to be a petroleum engineer. So you don't know what you want to be in grade school or high school, but we have to figure out how to really create that pipeline from pre-K to the day you graduate and get it the way the industry and the workforce needs it. So I think that's a big opportunity for us to just keep doing a better job on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that scale on which we're trying to work here is, framing that as one of our biggest opportunities, like millions of people with some college, no credential, that we don't have this demographic cliff or sort of pipeline issue that other states have, but we're trying to work at an incredible scale in Texas, which is an amazing opportunity. President McMillan, kind of how would you respond to this question of sort of what are our greatest opportunities that we're facing right now?
My response will be aligned with theirs. The ecosystem matters. I will take our local region and expand that to the entire state. I mentioned semiconductor coming to our area. We need to do a lot of things to get the technicians moving that I was talking about, and those are very expensive programs to stand up, but we're doing our part within our institution. And that's the main thing we're being asked about. But in every conversation I have with industry, with state leaders, with our community leaders, I talk about third grade STEM education because that's necessary. If we're going to build the pipeline that will live there and work there and create a region that thrives, we've got to rebuild that. I'm from the region that I now serve in. Texas Instruments was there in a large way many years ago, but a lot of the operations had moved to the Metroplex. And they had some of those programs, but they changed over time. We've got to bring those back to the local region and make sure it's not just about the community college, but it's about our K-12 system and also our university partners within our area. Make sure that we know what's happening there. But expand that to the entirety of Texas. A lot of dual enrollment within all of our community colleges, and they're going to places like A&M and Texas State. They are going farther afield than our traditional students move. So how do I make sure I have those connections with the students, that they know what programs, when they go to petroleum engineering and they're interested in business, that they know about your program and what's required there. And so focusing on strengthening those partnerships and removing the silos. There's many open doors. There's no wrong door. In fact, it's a great door to come from another state to Texas with some college and no degree. How do we connect you here to industry? Making sure that we have those in our DNA all the time. The short-term industry credentials are really emerging within the community college space. And I think that's a huge opportunity for us going forward. How do we maximize those? We had a student that we stood up. You were talking about the pandemic reaction, and one initiative that came out of that is Texas reskilling and upskilling through education. We launched a mental health technician training for that, a very short-term training program. And we had very successful, all those students were employed very quickly, 6-week program. They moved on. I was talking to a student this last week. She's in her 3rd year of nursing school. Prior to enrolling in that, she co-enrolled in that in our GED program. She didn't think of going to college. She's in her 3rd year of nursing school. So how do we meet those students that we can really help move them through the entire pipeline? And I think short-term credentials provide us that opportunity.
So this is a very, pretty open-ended, but what is one key takeaway about the current state of higher education and your own vision for the future that you want to make sure this audience leaves with today? And Regent Graham, I'll start with you on that one.
I don't know if I remember this question. I'm just going to make it up as I go. So, I think very central to our system, one key takeaway I have, and I really want to push is, A&M being a land grant system, a land grant university, we are there to serve the state of Texas. There should not be a student in the state of Texas that if they want to be part of our system, they should never be turned away. No, I mean, we have too many we have 11 universities in our system. We should not at A&M at the flagship just decline a student, and we don't very many, but we should never decline a student and just not give them an opportunity. If they've shown the willingness to be educated, then it's up to us to make sure that happens somewhere in our system. And so, I challenge everybody here, and that's the business we're in, right? Is educating students and get them all, right? And meet them where they need to be, not where we want them to be, but meet that student where they are and where they need to be, and give them every opportunity to be successful. Because that will only make Texas, the country, and the world that much better if we can do that.
Yeah. Chancellor McCall, that's a difficult one to follow. That was
every question I follow him on has been difficult. So the big questions in life don't change. When Sophocles was here, he dealt with the big questions in life that we struggle with today. In the 1930s, the governor of Texas at the time, Miriam Ferguson, was asked what her opinion was of the teaching of English as a second language in Texas. And she famously said, if the English language was good enough for Jesus Christ, it's good enough for the school children of Texas. And so, while the questions don't seem to change, as time goes by and universities play a big role, As time goes by, the answers tend to get better. We play a big role in making sure that the answers to the big questions in life get better. Fundamentalist movements in both religion and politics will continue to grow because they have easy answers to difficult questions. Colleges and universities do just the opposite. They tackle the hard questions, and we don't pretend that the answers are easy. We come up with difficult answers that require introspection and digging and self-questioning and failure and refailure and refailure before the questions are successfully answered. This is why I'm optimistic about higher education in Texas and the work that you all do. We're making lives better, answering the age-old difficult questions, and our answers keep getting better.
Wonderful answer.
So, thinking about my journey in higher education, I used to tell people I was the first in my family to attend college. And then when I became the president of Grayson College and looked at my mother's transcript, she attended one semester before I started college at now East Texas A&M University. That's pretty powerful to be sitting in that seat at the college your mother started at. The reason I didn't remember that she had attended college that semester is it was distance learning, and it was through VHS tapes, not online, much less interactive than online. But as I think about what we do in Texas and in higher education, it's founded upon one basic thought, that we're better when we have an educated workforce. Individuals are better when they have the power of an education. We know that during economic downturns. I was thinking about it the other day. I have a high school senior. He really doesn't know what an economic downturn is. You think about that in relation to the attitudes about higher education. We know that we can weather those storms when we have Texans with an education. We know when companies come to us, they ask, what is the prepared workforce? In the semiconductor industry, it's a network across the country, and I'm hearing rumblings from other areas that they're slowing production or considering not expansion because there is no workforce. We know the future of Texas requires this marriage between industry, workforce, and local communities. Those are really powerful things. Each one of us has something to do in that space. Community colleges have been very focused on helping students to be successful. The Texas Success Center, and I know our director is here somewhere, has focused the last decade on helping us to have more students complete their credential. Before, it was a real large piece of our funding metric from the state. I'm so glad we're at that work. I see the philanthropy here that supported that work. That work matters. We are more well-positioned to handle the future because of that work. And then House Bill 8 comes along and gives us the opportunity to lean into that and have different conversations with our employers. We've done customized training at our college for many years. I'm very proud of the work we've done through the Skills Development Grant. But now I'm talking to them not about the specialized individual training, Excel spreadsheets, or other specific things, but credentials. Those credentials travel well with Texans who leave us and go to other regions. Their lives are better, economic mobility. Student success is critical to what we do. The key takeaway I would have for you here is House Bill 8 has caused us to move more quickly, be more close to the performance that we have. But a promise of that was that if we performed well, there would be funding. And we've performed better than we expected during the last 2 years. And so we're asking for supplemental funding in the upcoming legislative session. That's important to solidify the future of how we're trying to be responsive to meet the needs of Texas. It's a great opportunity to do that. I'm honored to be the president at Grayson College, and thank you for inviting me to be here.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all so much. Really appreciate you all lending your time, your experience, your expertise to this conversation today. It's been an honor to be here with you.
Thank you.
Today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, since this is the last session of the conference, I wanted to take just a quick moment of personal privilege to say thank you to all the coordinating board staff who put this event on, led by Allison Rizzolo. have a small but mighty team working really hard on this, and really appreciate everything they've done. So thank you all so much for being here with us today and yesterday for Higher Edge 2024.
Thank you.